No reserve, no retreat, no regrets. In life, you face challenges. Many people hit the challenges and turn around. Many people stop at challenges and complain. But most people who are successful, right, go through those challenges, soak up the challenges, and continue. The way I look at the real estate industry is, I basically say real estate is a relationship between people and buildings, right? So anywhere you have to create buildings or spaces for people to use, I call it real estate. So hospitality, it cuts across many things. So hospitality, whether you're in a cinema, it's hospitality. If you're in a restaurant, it's hospitality. If you're in a beach, there's a hospitality service. If you're in a garden or a cafe. So hospitality is actually quite broad. You need a platform for hospitality is real estate. My life started in the mid 1960s. I was born into a very normal family. My father was a diplomat, and my mother worked for the BBC. She was more or less a fashion journalist. And I grew up in London and did my sort of primary school in London. And at the age of 10, my father decided to send me to Nigeria. He was very Nigeria-centric. So my brother and I. And, I look back at that time and I say that probably the reason I'm sitting in Nigeria today is because I did that. So Landmark started about 24 years ago, 23 years ago. A long time, huh? Older than you? So it's a long time. So I started in London, in England, right? And the whole idea of Landmark was to provide sort of professional advisory services to companies that wanted to travel around the world. I knew a lot of people. I had a lot of experience around the world. And by the time, I was in my early 30s, I'd been to over 80 countries in the world, right? I had lived in 4 different continents. I had met people of different nationalities, different cultures, different backgrounds. So I wanted to use that sort of experience coupled with my business education, my architecture education. I wanted to use that experience to advise companies on how to set up around the world. So I set up in London and tried to do this. It was tough, right? Because a lot of the strategies and a lot of the tactics, a lot of the things you think about when you try to run a business don't actually play out that way. So the lesson number 1 I learned was, you need to find out what the market wants and you need to give it to the market. Don't ever dream up what you think the market wants and provide it. You couldn't do well like that. So I then realized that there were so many people like me, young small businesses, trying to get heard, but lacking the services and the resources and the platform to be serious. So that's why I decided to pivot towards a sort of virtual office business. Right? So in that virtual office business, we created sort of meeting rooms, secretarial services, administrative support, little offices, telephone services, marketing services for smaller businesses. And that really was the birth of Landmark. So we started in London. After a few years, we spread to different sort of European cities. We opened up in Frankfurt, in Munich, in Madrid, in Barcelona, in Marbella, in Prague, in Brussels. So there were quite a number of European, and it was okay because I got partners in all these places, but it wasn't ballistic. I always realized that even though I enjoyed it, I just felt that I was in foreign countries and I was competing with established organizations that had a little bit more than I had. I had more gunpowder, as they say, right? I was in a foreign place. And I remember, this was in 2003, 2004, a very close friend of mine visited Nigeria. I visited London when I was living in London with his family, and he used to come to work with me to figure out what I was doing. I said, why did you come to Nigeria and try this thing? Nigeria's ready for this. So on my next holiday, and from that time I was coming to Nigeria, then my next holiday I came, and sort of took me around, introduced me to different people. And I sort of examined Nigeria, and I just realized then, and this was now approaching, I think 2003, 2004. I thought, Africa was changing at the time. It was becoming sort of more open for business. And I thought, this place is ready. So packed my bags
and decided to sort of roll that dice again. So I suppose if I were to point a time when this entrepreneurial journey started, I would say I went to work for a company called Regis and a gentleman called Mark Dixon, and this guy was a real entrepreneur. Every day he rolled the dice. And I learned so much about entrepreneurship. When I went to work for that company, it's effectively, we were working around Mark Dixon's dining table. And there were 7 or 8 of us in the company. He had big dreams to build an office network around the world. I did, I think, about 6 odd years there. And when I was leaving, the company had literally we'd worked in 260 odd cities. We'd opened over 600 offices. So it was we worked late into the night, every day, early mornings. And it was interesting because when he started the company, I think he borrowed about 200,000 euros to start the company. And he floated it on the stock market 8 years later for $1.4 billion. In that time, so that's the amount of value he created during that time. And I was fascinated watching this happen and being part of it. I was basically in charge of the property and the logistics team. So it was my job to go and find these offices in all these countries and try to put those offices together. So I met a lot of people as well. And, I suppose that set me up for business. So when I was leaving, I just thought, I want to do this thing for myself, especially after it floated and become a public company. And my first investment, were two things that happened at the same time. My former company gave me a lot of money, to be fair, right? Said, what, we want you to do well, and so there was a big investment there. But I worked with a bank called the HSBC, and I managed to get on a program which was for sort of young entrepreneurs that wanted to start businesses in certain sectors. So I got a fairly big investment from there at the time. I put those two together and rolled the dice. I lost all that money, by the way, but so all that investment was great, but all that went. I didn't lose it, but I spent it, and I spent it on things that didn't make a big difference. But it allowed me to learn some mistakes. Africa is a collection of countries in different sorts of cycles of their development, and they have different obviously they're different languages, but they're different cultures. The way people see things are different, and the monetary systems are different. The legal framework, even the way people access to build property, service property was different. And it was such a cultural change from what I was used to, where there were established ways of doing things. I realized that, there's real opportunity in this continent. I then realized that to run a property business, a service property business, you actually had to have some control of the property. And because you needed to be able to influence the service of that property, the services and the experience that you can provide to the customers that come to that property on a long-term basis. So we acquired property assets, and that's how this stretch of land was acquired. At the same time as many other stretches of land. And this happened to be the first one we decided to sort of develop to this extent. Whoa.
So strong.
It's very strong. I hope I'm able to walk out of here. Tough question. Where do I prefer to live? Well, let me start with the leisure time. So there are 3 things I love. My family, Landmark, and my football team, Arsenal. All right? So I spend my leisure time between those 3 things. But the concept of what we do at Landmark, we call it business, leisure, and lifestyle. So whilst I'm doing business, I have leisure. And whilst I'm at leisure, I do business. So generally, what are the things I really like doing? I cycle, I watch football, I watch sports, I talk to people, I travel, I network, I relax, and I like nice whiskey. I always say that the job of a real estate practitioner is to stay awake at night so other people can sleep at night, right? So when I'm in Lagos, I'm awake at night so people can sleep at night. And when I'm in London, I'm working during the day so people can enjoy themselves during the day. Yeah. So I'll say, well, 3 things about leadership. One thing is leaders are people who walk their talk, not people who talk about it, but people who you can follow just by their actions. And the big thing I would say, if I go back 10 years in time, would be overestimate experience and underestimate knowledge. Knowledge is only useful in the context of experience. And I think when I was younger, I thought I was smart and I had knowledge, and I didn't listen to enough experiences other people had. So I think that would be the big lesson I tell my children and younger people is never underestimate experience. So we're standing right here, literally in the center of the landmark ecosystem. This site is 1.2 kilometers long, and I'm standing at the 600-meter mark. Now, in 3 years' time, I'll be standing 30 floors up if I'm exactly on the same spot. So what we're about to do here is build our new residential tower, and we call it the Landmark Waterview. It's 30 floors, it has 300 apartments, and we're looking forward to seeing probably the best-in-class business, leisure, and lifestyle building in Lagos. And we look forward to welcoming that to the ecosystem. It will be a great addition to the ecosystem, and I think that's the last piece of real estate that we're building within this environment, and hopefully it will be complete then. So come back in 3 years' time and see one of the wonders of the world in Lagos. The biggest strength of Landmark? So I'll couple it into 2 things. One, I believe, is just the creative vision. I really do think we have a great value proposition here, but that's not a strength without the courage and the rigor of the people who can execute that vision, right? So I would say the biggest strength of Landmark is the talent we have at Landmark, the people who are prepared to break their boundaries just to deliver the vision that we've tried to propagate here. People live, work, and play. So I feel that if you put living, working, and playing all in the same place, life becomes more efficient. People enjoy it more, and you get more bang for your buck.